Hi, we are going to look at the coordinate plane. Today we are going to be looking at Chapter 11, Lesson 3, which can be found on pages 604 and 605 in your textbook. You should have gotten a handout on Monday in class that just has several definitions that we need to look at, and then also a couple of questions down at the bottom. If you don't have your sheet, you can either download it on your computer at home. It's on my website on the forms page, or you should have it in the math section of your binder. The coordinate plane is formed by two number lines that intersect at right angles. So we have this grid, and then we have the y-axis and the x-axis that intersect right here at 0, and this is what we consider our coordinate grid or coordinate plane. We have our axes, which are the two number lines on the coordinate plane, which is your y is the one that goes up and down, and the x is the one that goes left and right. We have the horizontal axis, that is called the x-axis, and we have it labeled right here onto the side. And then we have the vertical axis, that's called the y-axis, and we label it right up here at the top. So the one that goes up and down is the y, the one that goes from left to right is the x. The two axes divide the coordinate plane into 4 sections or quadrants. Many of you were used to using quadrant 1, which is this one over here. When you were in elementary school, you pretty much worked with just positive numbers, which will give you points in the quadrant 1, which is just the positive and positive, going right and going up. This year you'll be working with all 4 quadrants and working with positive and negative numbers. So we have quadrant 1 is the one that's here. Quadrant 2 is this section. Quadrant 3 is this section. And quadrant 4 is this section. I usually tell you to remember the order of the quadrants just by remembering the C. If you make a C, you start here in quadrant 1 and work your way around to quadrant 2, then quadrant 3, then quadrant 4. So there are 4 quadrants making the C. You're going in that direction, starting here 1, 2, 3, and 4. The point where the axes intersect is considered 0, 0, which is called your point of origin. You're always going to start at your 0, 0 point, which is right here in the middle, unless the directions tell you your point of origin is somewhere else, and it'll give you those specific coordinates. But if you don't see any of that, which is the majority of the time, you're always going to start at 0, 0, which is your point of origin. An ordered pair gives the location of a point on the coordinate plane. The first number tells you how far to move right, which are positive numbers, or left, which are your negative numbers. And the second number tells you how far to move up, which are your positive numbers, and down are your negative numbers. So your coordinates are considered the numbers in the ordered pair. You're always going to have 2 of them. Your x comes first, your y comes second. The x-coordinate is the one that comes first, is going to tell you which way to move, right or left on that coordinate plane. And then the y-coordinate is going to tell you which way to move up or down on the coordinate plane also. So, name the quadrant where each point is located. Remember, we have our C, and we label them. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Anything that's inside this quadrant is going to be in quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is over here, 3 and 4. If you have something that is on the actual y-axis or on the x-axis line, that actual line, like this z right here, point Z, we are not going to classify that as being in a quadrant. It has to be inside the quadrant. If it's on that line, the x or y axis, then there is no quadrant. We don't include both of them, we just say there's no quadrant. So for example, point X. Point X is located right here, which is in quadrant 4. Point Y is located here, which is in quadrant 3. Point S is located here, and it's in quadrant 2. Give the coordinates of each point. So now we actually have to look at the coordinates and decide what are those directions to get to that point. So if we have X, point X is here. Now we'll notice that on our coordinate plane we have 0, a blank, 2, a blank, 4. So we know what's going to go here. It's going to be positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, positive 4, and so on. It can keep going on up, more numbers if you need them. We have our 0 going below, going down from 0. You have negative numbers, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Going to the right, you have positive numbers, positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, positive 4. And going left from 0, you have negative numbers. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and negative 4. So to give those coordinates of X, we always put our X number first and then our Y in that order. It has to be in that order. So our X and our Y. If our point X is here, I'm going to start at 0, and we consider this run and jump. So that X coordinate, we're going to run either right or left, and then the Y, we're going to jump either up or down. So if you just remember run and then jump, the run's going to tell you which direction to go, right or left on this coordinate plane, and the jump's going to tell you which way to go, up or down on the coordinate plane. So if my X point is here, I'm going to run starting at 0, run all the way over to 4, and then jump down to where this line would be is negative 4. So it intersects at 4 and then jump down to negative 1. So my coordinates are going to be 4, negative 1. That tells me to run from 0, right 4, go down 1. Okay, so we ran right 4, down 1. Y, let's look at point Y. We have our Y is here. We're starting at 0. We go right or left. Well, we're going to run left to negative 2 and then jump down to negative 3. So we're going to go left to negative 2, go down to where negative 3 would be. So our coordinates are, the X comes first, negative 2, and then the Y coordinate is negative 3 right here. And we always write them in parentheses. We have our X, comma, Y, and then our parentheses goes around it. Point S. Point S is here. We start at 0. We're going to run over to negative 3. That means go left 3 spaces from 0, and then go up to positive 3. Our positive numbers are going up, the negative numbers go down. So we're going to go left to negative 3 and then up to positive 3. So our coordinates are negative 3, 3. That would be the coordinates for point S. Okay, now we're going to graph each point on the coordinate plane. So if it gives you the coordinates and it has a V with the coordinates 4 and 2, I know this is my X and this is my Y. So what I'm going to do is start at 0. I have a positive 4, so I'm going to start at 0 and come over to 4, here. And then it tells me 2 is my second number, my y is positive 2, so I go up 2. And I put a dot there, and I label it V, because that's the letter it gave us, point V. Now I have W is negative 3, that's my x, and 1 is my y. So I'm going to go to 0, go over negative 3, and then go up 1 to positive 1. I put a dot there, or a point, and I label it W, so point W, because I have a W there with the coordinates. That's all you have to do to graph a point on the coordinate grid. And this is what we just did. Graph each point on the coordinate plane. Z, we have 0, 4. Okay, if you have a 0 on our x, that just means we're not going right or left. We're staying on 0. So my right and left direction is 0, so I just stay there. And then my y coordinate is 4, so I'm going to stay at 0 and then come up to 4. And that, actually this says negative 4. It should have a negative sign there for the negative 4. Our next one is T, 1, negative 3. So I'm going to 1, positive 1, and then down to negative 3. And putting my point T right here. Okay, that's pretty much all that we need to know about plotting points. Tomorrow in class we will move on, and actually I'll give you some graph paper tomorrow. We'll put our coordinate grid on the graph paper, and we will be plotting points. We'll be determining what quadrant points are in, and then giving coordinates for specific points.